Are y'all ready to head off the trails? I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would love to have you guys. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that awesome music. I always appreciate that. You guys, please follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. I think I got that wrong. Okay. But anyways, yeah, I should probably get my script out like I used to have. But anyways, yeah, y'all go find us. We're on there. We're on all the social medias. Okay. You guys also come and find me on the cryptidhuntress.com, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's the Cryptid Huntress, where I can guarantee we're going to have a good time every single week, every Wednesday and Thursday at the Cryptid Huntress channel. I'm going to be adding a new show to my channel here pretty soon, maybe on the weekend, but we'll see. Lately, I've been way busy out in the field doing Bigfooting and cryptid field research. I've been out in the field the past 2 weekends in a row, and boy, it has been so awesome and so fun. So yeah, you guys please, yeah, go if you want to check out all the events that I'm going to be at. I just added a calendar to my website, and so you can find out. I do believe I may be speaking at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference this year. That's next month. I will get the details as soon as I have them. So you guys come see me there. And I got a few other things we're working on right now. Okay, well, if you'd like to support Spaced Out Radio, you guys please go and join our Space Travelers Club. That is over on Patreon, where you'll get some nice perks over there. Go check that out. Go to spacedoutradio.com for more. Also, we have the Spaced Out Radio fan party happening, I think it's May 10th through 12th, 11th and 12th, potentially. Okay, that's in Reno, Nevada. Y'all come see us. We're going to be broadcasting live with the Spaced Out Radio crew, and it's always a good time. All right. Well, let's get to our show tonight. Don't forget that right after this program, we have After Hours that has another fantastic program set up for us. Okay, and I don't want to waste any time. I've got the guru himself here tonight. We've got Ronald Murphy in the studio. So let's get to our guest tonight. Ron Murphy has been investigating the stuff of nightmares for over 30 years. He's investigated the things that go bump in the night and meticulously researched the history and psychological context of myths and legends from around the world. Mr. Murphy seeks to uncover the archetypal precedent for the monsters that haunt our collective thoughts. And tonight, it is guru time. Please help me welcome to the show my buddy, Ronald Murphy.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. And I will have to tell you, if I ever have to go off the rails with anybody, you would be my first and only choice. So I definitely am your biggest fan, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. Listen, we're going off the trails where we very commonly go off the rails. So you're in good news tonight, though. It's always a good time, like I said.
Yeah, there's a certain madness to this field, isn't there? I mean, I think that we go in here very sane. We will be leaving as a Mad Hatter, so it's good to kind of go in there just a little bit off.
Yeah, we got to be a little off to do the things that we do, though, you know, by normal people's standards.
Right. We have to be a little bit off to admit that we do this.
That's true. You know, I went for many years not disclosing to anybody that I worked with that I was out in the woods chasing Bigfoots on the weekends. I never told anybody. I just told people I was going camping.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something, you know, though, I will tell you this. I think camping is a little bit more insane than going looking for Bigfoot. I really do. I've attempted to be a camper. I love the outdoors, but sleeping in the outdoors, I just have never got onto it.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And you cook over a fire too and things like that, right?
Yes, sometimes.
There's no way I could do any of this stuff. I will live vicariously through you. Now, don't get me wrong. I have been on expeditions before that required overnight camping, but I'm just not a fan. I like electricity very much and flush toilets and cable television, so I'm a little bit spoiled in that regard. Or either that or I have a very, very low attention span. One of the two.
Well, I have to admit something. And hey, Mama Catherine. Catherine's in the chat tonight.
All right.
That's my cousin. Yes.
Nice.
Okay, so I have to admit, like when we go camping, sometimes if we're able to what we call car camping, which is where we can take our car there. We're not like bivouacking, which is where we take like a one-person tent and we hike in somewhere. If we're car camping, you can pretty much hook up anything to your plugs inside your truck, and
Mm.
you can glam. Okay, so you can
Oh
have
wow.
electricity out there if you want. Yeah, people get real creative with it. So
Yeah.
it's not that
That's
primitive.
Well, my dream is to get an RV eventually, right? So then you could go all over the place, and you come back to your little home on wheels. But yeah, I mean, in order to get out there, in order to find these things that go bump in the night, you tend to have to go a little bit off the road, you know. But
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, like I said, one of these days you and I will get together and do some sort of expedition. I think that it would be a great thing. I think people would want to see it. I know I would want to see that. So we'll see what the future holds.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to take a film crew with us for that one. That would be
We'll
fun.
That's right. I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I have one of my teammates here in the chat. Susan is in here. I'm pretty sure this is my Susan from my team. Sleeping outdoors with cryptids growling in your ear. Yes, that did happen to Susan. So that's got to
Wow.
be Susan. Yes.
Yeah.
We've awakened to Bigfoot's growling in our tent. I woke up to a dream one night. It was late one night, and I was dreaming that a Bigfoot was breathing into my tent, and I could see the breath coming through my tent. And I woke up. I can't say that didn't really happen. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
couldn't tell if it was
Right.
a dream or if it was real.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Warren Coleman, he had suggested at a talk that had seen him do. It was probably 15 or 20 years ago, but he suggests that if the Bigfoot enigma is ever going to be solved, it's going to be done by women. And I firmly believe that we need to have. I think there's a lot of women in the field, but there's not a lot of women that are recognized in the field, like a Bigfoot or really any kind of supernatural phenomenon to actually be brought to light. I think it's going to be requiring women to do that because men go out into the woods with a bit of machismo and a little bit of bravado to them, and they're very confrontational. But I think in order for these things to manifest themselves, it would be done for a woman. I really do.
Well, I had my son out there with me yesterday. We went for a day trip out to one of our areas where we research in middle Georgia. It's called the Troop Herd Corridor. And that's where I was yesterday. I never give out my information before I go. You never know who's watching you and stuff.
That's all
So,
right.
so we went down to the Troop Herd Corridor. I took my dog, my German Shepherd, and I took my kid. And I never take my dog out there because it could be kind of dangerous when we're doing actual research with our teams. Bigfoots don't seem to like dogs very much for
That's
the most
right.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
There's almost a universal belief that Bigfoot will kill or injure dogs. There seems to be this kind of uh, this wariness by both particular creatures of one another.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think Bigfoots I think they're more interested and they get really curious when a kid's out there too. And
I do.
so, of course, I have my head on a swivel. I am 100% ready to protect ourselves if anything were to happen. Because we're not only getting Bigfoot reports, and we've actually seen Bigfoot in those woods where we were. We came across some interesting tree structures, some arches, and that were tied from the tip down to the. I mean, I have some pictures. I guess I could show a couple if
Sure.
you're
Yeah.
interested. Because sometimes it's hard to tell if this was Bigfoot or human that did this. I want it to be. I mean, I want it to be Bigfoot. Okay, but when you come across a tree, and these are like really thin trees, and it's folded over into an arch, and the bottom of it is like tied into other tree branches, and like in a weird intricate, we call it an astro. Oh, wrong picture. That looks like Bigfoot right there. That was me. Okay, so it's not a very good picture, but maybe the audience can see it. There's a tree with an arch. Let's see, maybe this is better. There we go. And it's super thin tree, and it's being held together down there right here. Wait, hold on, this way, right here where my fingers are, in this type of a method right here where they take and like I said, this is I'm like 5'8". Okay, so I'm not super short, but I'm not tall either. I'm 5'8", and so this was about at my height. They're about, it was about 5'6" in the air right here. This right here. So to me, I'm like, well, that could have been like a drunk camper or something, or a hiker or somebody messing with us if they know we're out there doing our research out there. So it's just interesting to note. Super cool stuff to come across in the middle of the woods. But I can't confirm there are Bigfoots out there for sure, because we've actually seen one.
Well, yeah. So for a human to do that, even if they're just playing a prank, I think that would take a lot of a lot to go out there. But the idea that it's like weaved—that's what's really impressive.
Yeah, and so it's not just like an animal. The weather didn't do that. I mean,
No.
and that's not the only one that was out there. There's another one down the way. There are a couple of those scattered throughout the woods. So my question, Ron, do you think that if that is Bigfoot made, could that be like a portal or a stargate? What do you think the use of the arches are?
So I do believe in the idea of portals. I truly believe in that kind of stuff. But whenever it
Mhm.
comes to like homemade portals, I'm not sure if that's how they work. I would think that if you find a structure out there and it's not made by a human being, I think then you'd have to look for some sort of antecedent that appears in nature. And we do know that great apes do build these kind of makeshift wooden structures, and some of them are pretty intense, like for the orangutan and then the mountain gorilla and everything. So I think that that's probably what we're getting at. Now, the idea of a portal, because like I said, I have seen strange things happen in the woods that I assume had to be a portal, because I don't know how else to explain it. But I've always I believe that I've seen them manifest as a form of light.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
interesting because I've seen a whole bunch of light anomalies out in the field too. And you and I, before we went live, we were talking about orbs. And
Yes, that's right.
I've seen my share of orbs, Ron. Okay, out in the field and in my house.
Right,
So,
right. So that's the thing, because sometimes they do intrude into people's homes as well. So instead of you seeing them out in the middle of the woods, they actually come to you, and it's a fascinating undertaking to do research onto these things. So I had an experience. The first experience I had was looking for a werewolf. There was a local legend that this particular area, there was some sort of shape shifting creature there. So I was out with another investigator at night, and then we noticed that all around us it appeared to be static electricity. It was very, very odd, although it was a clear night. And then our batteries started to drain on all the equipment that we had. We turned to leave because we were both getting spooked, because you could actually feel the environment change, as if the barometric pressure was changing. But there was definitely change going on. And as we turned to leave, this orb emanates, and it probably only lasted for maybe 3-4 seconds at tops, and it kind of ignited and it kind of flickered off. But the interesting thing was, the light was it wasn't shining around. It wasn't illuminating the area around it. It was this kind of internal glow, but it wasn't enough to light the woods around it, which was very strange as well. So we decided we have to get out of here, because, like I said, we're getting spooked, and the only way back to where we had parked was going where this orb had manifested itself. And as we approached the area where the orb ignited, lit, for whatever word you want to call it, off to our right hand side, we hear something following us in the woods. So it is my belief that when we were out there doing the research, there was nothing out there. There was nothing indicative that there was something out there with us. Now, whenever this orb appeared and it flickered off, that is whenever we had this sensation, and this you could hear something moving, you could hear something breathing. I believe, as a researcher, and for lack of a better explanation, that light that we saw allowed whatever was now following us to enter into our world.
oh yeah. Yeah, you hear about that with even, okay, not only Sasquatch sightings and dogman. Sometimes, and I hear about dogmen manifesting through trees.
Mm.
And I have seen a video where the tree did start to sparkle a little bit. Okay, and so my friend Barry Littleton and I, we've done several shows. We've talked about this a lot about trees being portals. Okay, and so I don't know. I just think it's interesting that the dogman phenomenon, because people just say that dogman is just flesh and bone, Bigfoot's just flesh and bone and blood, but there's some sort of supernatural element to all of them, I believe. I mean, I think you'd probably agree with that.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's so many people out there with cameras and cell phones, and things get picked up by happenstance. So sooner or later something is going to be captured on film or digitally or whatever, and it's not happening. So the reason why I don't think it's happening is because we're dealing with something that's more than just, like you said, just flesh and blood, right? Now, that's not to say it's not flesh and blood whenever it enters into our world, but it's my contention that whatever is out there is not solely of this particular dimension.
Yeah, I'd have to
Yeah,
agree with that for sure. Yeah, and
right.
there's so many different types of orbs too, and I know my audience has heard this story, but I'm gonna say it again. One of the one of the more memorable last times, because I go out in the woods a lot, that I was up in the North Georgia mountains. I live in Georgia, by the way. We were up in the North Georgia mountains, and I saw an orange orb floating through the trees. It kind of whisked through the trees, almost like a blur, but it was bright. It was a bright orange light, and it went through the trees. And as it dissipated, there was a growl and a huff, like a hoof, and
Mm-hmm.
it resonated. Okay, like you could feel it. And so I immediately, the guy that was with me, there were three of us out there, but we grabbed our flashlights and took off kind of towards it into the tree line to make sure it wasn't a bear or something. But see, I knew it wasn't a bear. That we have
Yeah.
Bigfoot up there, a lot of Bigfoot activity. So it was the first time I had actually seen an orange orb that kind of manifested into something that sounded like a Bigfoot, which I think it was a
Right.
big.
Right. Yeah, it's odd because very similar to the very first encounter I had with an orb, and we were again looking for Bigfoot, and we smelled something. We didn't hear anything or see anything, but we definitely smelled something, and it just was kind of like instantaneous, almost like a skunk type of thing. But it was much more harsh than I was. It was a natural smell, but it was a smell that you couldn't describe, right? So whenever you smell those kind of things, that's usually nature's way of saying stay away, right? It's a way of being confrontational or territorial without being confrontational. So it's like, yo, you went a little bit too far. Back up now. So we smell that. And what had happened was, I was with two other people. We stood our ground, right? We didn't retreat, and we had stood our ground for a couple minutes waiting to see what happened, and that's whenever the orb then was visible, and it was a bright red orb, and exactly the same thing that you had seen. It now starts going through the trees. I assumed it was an airplane on the horizon until I saw that it was actually not on the horizon. It was quite close to where we were at, and then it started to go through the trees, and it just simply wandered along and disappeared, and we never saw it again. But of course, like I said, there was kind of like a warning, like, hey, there's something out here, really don't go any farther. And then all of a sudden this orb manifests itself. So I've seen enough orbs in situations where I am convinced that this is the variable that connects the dots of the paranormal. So a lot of times whenever people are going ghost hunting, they see orbs immediately. That is indication that there are spirits around, right? Or the orb represents a spacecraft if you're a UFO investigator. But whenever it comes to Bigfoot and Dogman and these other cryptids, we're just now starting to understand that these orbs have a place within that field as well. And it's really one of my theories that they are able to project within our minds the image of either a Bigfoot or a Dogman, and that's my point of contention now. That these orbs, because they're light they're made up of a frequency, and
Mhm.
our brain function on energy, which is in and of itself a frequency as well too. And there is really nothing stopping some sort of intelligent, sentient energy to interacting within our minds to make us believe wholeheartedly that what we're seeing is real, because to us it is real. It's our perception that makes it into a reality. So that's where I'm at right now, and I think that might be a little bit a lot of people might think that's a little bit off the wall, but I think that it makes a lot of sense. I think that we see these orbs, and if we don't discount them wholeheartedly, then there's something about these things. It's either the vehicle by which these creatures enter our dimension, or it is some sort of a doorway. I don't know exactly what we're doing here, but I think it goes hand in hand with what we are investigating.
Absolutely, because I've seen so many orbs, different types of orbs, from orbs in my home dancing around my son one night when I came home from the meadow where we do some research, uh,
Uh,
to going to Corpsewood Manor, this place up in North Georgia, where two gentlemen were murdered. They were known Satanists and did a whole lot of like rituals. Anton LaVey was a personal friend of theirs. They were brutally murdered on this piece of property. And it's right beside the Chickamauga battlefield. We go up there and take pictures, and all of my pictures had orbs with faces in them, which I
uh,
find interesting. SG Nav Spotter 310. I can't see very well. Were these orbs possibly angels? Did you see a person inside of it? Now, I have seen orbs with faces in them. I have pictures of faces in orbs. And those are usually associated with hauntings, in my experience.
right, right. Yeah, I've never seen an orb larger than probably a light bulb, right? Most all the orbs I've ever seen are almost pinpoints of light. It looks like an LED light. That's the most one that I've been associated with. However, I will tell you that, and if you want to, this is one of those stories that I'm going to tell you that I actually have corroborating evidence for. So, I was asked to do a program called Sasquatch Uncovered the Ridge through Small Town Monsters a year ago. And in that program, there was 8 episodes, and we would go up and down the Chestnut Ridge looking for evidence of Bigfoot. Now, the very first time we were out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, we did everything that people would expect to do on a Bigfoot investigation. The howls, the knocking on trees, and of course all the trolls come out and they say, you guys are making fools of yourself for doing this. But whenever you do something on video, people have to understand that we are doing a lot of things at one time, because nobody wants to sit and watch 45 minutes of nothing happening, right? So there's a bit of a double-edged sword whenever it comes to videotaping anything. So we were going through this, and we were going through all the motions as if you were on an expedition, on a Bigfoot investigation, and nothing was happening. Just not, it was one of those evenings. And then Seth Breedlove, who was the creator of this particular venture, we were off this old logging road, and we hear what sounds like wind chimes coming out of nowhere, like in the woods, right? And it was perplexing. It was very metallic sounding. So the wind chimes go off, and then a few moments later, we hear what sounds like a wood knock, just one wood knock, and then a very, very low howl that was kind of like reverberating through this little hollow that we were overlooking. And at that point, the orbs now had manifested themselves. If you care to watch it, it's Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge, and it's episode 2 called Spectral Bigfoot, and it's on YouTube, so it's free to watch. So we start experiencing these orbs, and they start interacting with us. And some people were claiming they were the size of basketballs. Some of them were changing colors, but they were definitely interacting with us in a way that normal nature type of anomalies would not. So I was so taken aback by what was going on. I thought I need to research and study on this. So I wrote a book about Earth lights. Lights from the Mist is what it's going to be called. Small Town Monsters is going to be releasing the book, and they're also putting together a video, a documentary that will go along with the book's release as well too. We just filmed today for a few hours, and the gentleman Tyler Hall, who's doing so much of the groundwork, he actually was out all night last night, and they got some pretty cool footage of orbs, within the environment. So I think it's going to be something big. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very flattered that they asked me to be a part of this. And really, I mean, I think that without that episode that I was involved with, I wouldn't have given it much more thought. I mean, I'm seeing strange things, but it really never kind of tied into my schema of how the paranormal works. But I do firmly believe that these orbs, these energies, are something that manifest out of the earth themselves. You talked about the place where you investigated being a hotbed of things. I think if we look at the earth, I do believe in ley lines, and I do believe in energy grids, and I think there's places like the Bridgewater Triangle, and there's places like the Appalachia Plateau, of which the Chestnut Ridge is involved in, places like the Skinwalker Ranch, and all these places around the world, Stonehenge and such, that have these kind of places where the energy is much more powerful than other areas around here. And I'm also kind of going over the fact of the Gaia theory, which suggests that the Earth is an intelligent being in and of itself, and that we think about the whole cliche of Mother Earth, but I do believe that. I think that if we love what gives us life, it's going to love us back, and the idea that maybe it has these intelligences that can release themselves and become independently sentient from the earth itself in the form of, for lack of a better word, elementals, is basically what these things could be. These orbs of light could indeed be elementals that are part of the world itself. And then you think, well, what are those things? And if we would go back a little bit in time, then elementals then become fairies. So it's kind of like this circular type of thing where we necessarily have to go back in time to find an answer for what we're seeing today.
Wow. That is fascinating. And orbs are something that have been just surrounding me my entire life. I have seen orbs. I've actually seen orbs that were green. I woke up one night that, my little brother passed away back almost 20 years ago in an accident. And so I woke up one night, the week that he passed away, and all these green orbs were floating all around the room. And they started to form into my brother. Wow, it was wild. I mean, I've seen a lot of different types of orbs. So those were green, of all things. I don't think I've ever seen green orbs since then. That was the only time I'd ever seen green orbs. But
yeah, a good point too. So they do come in different colors. I've seen white, which is probably the most prevalent, but I have seen striking red ones as well too, blue ones and red. But again, there seems to be an intensity to them, right? And it seems as if the colors do mean something. If it's some sort of, game or a code or whatever might be going on. But I do believe that we are onto something here, and the colors might actually even represent the frequency in which they are broadcasting, for lack of a better word. So I think that they are giving us hints of what's going on, and we simply have to decipher what hints they're giving us.
Yes, absolutely. The Wildberry Candy Company, is asking, are the colors of the orbs related to the chakras? Well, that would have something to do with the frequencies. I mean, they say even the Earth has chakras, right? I don't know. Right. Maybe I'm making that up, but
no. So whenever I started to write this book, I thought, if this is really happening, it's not going to exist in a vacuum, right? Like, it's just not happening to me. It's just not happening in the 21st century. Obviously, if this was happening, it's been happening since the beginning, right? So as I start researching, I find out that in the Hindu religion, which is one of the oldest religions in the world, we have the idea of the prana, which is this
Mhm.
sacred light, this sacred fire that really kind of enlivens us all, right? So it's within all of us that makes us alive. And what that your guest had suggested is absolutely relevant to what we're talking about, because if this enlivening fire is what gives us life, right, then obviously there's going to be other representations of it as well too. And the idea that the chakras are the energy that keeps us going and everything kind of ties us with this universal frequency that I think is out there. I firmly believe that there is a frequency out there to which we were at once tuned into. We abided by it. It's kind of like the universe's heartbeat, and we were all part of that. And whenever we decided that we were going to leave the world behind and create our own version of nature, inventing electric lights and walls and all these other things that make us human and make us civilized, we have forgotten about that universal vibration and frequency that's out there. Now, it's still out there, but we've decided that we're no longer going to listen to it or tune into it. But that doesn't mean there's other things that don't dance by that music as well. And I think that when we go into certain places on investigations and we go out and we find these strange things that go on, they're strange to us because we don't understand. But at least in my opinion, we are seeing a part of nature that we have simply forgotten about. It's part of that, that great forgetting that we as a human race had went through. But I do believe that there are things out there that are intelligences, and they exist, the same way that we exist. But like I said, if we look at ancient religions, if we look at Aboriginal religions, like in Australia as well too, they have these idea of earth lights as well. That is the conduit between the dream time and our world. So it is a vehicle by which we can, at least psychologically, enter and travel to a different realm. And I think that's a very important part of shamanism. And I think that all these kind of early religions really derived from the interaction with the earth itself, because the earth has always been sacred and has always been, revered for quite some time. But even whenever we are wrestling with the divine and we decide to start making God in our own image, we see in the Judeo-Christian concepts of this idea of the sacred fire and the sacred light as well too, because we have to understand whenever Moses first encounters the divine, it's in the wilderness, and it's a bush that's burning, but it's not being consumed by the flame. So it is this, again, we have an earth light there, right? It's something that looks like, fire. It's igniting, and it can actually interact with us. And the other point of view is as well too, as we get into the New Testament, we have to understand that the Holy Spirit presents itself or becomes tongues of flame that descend upon people, right? So again, we have this earth light. So when we think about in Hindu religion, the idea of this enlivening light, this fire, and then 12,000 years later, when we come up to Christianity, we have this same idea of a sacred fire that brings us wisdom and brings us light and life. Then we might be connecting dots here that have been overlooked.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I didn't even think about the fairies as well. Thank you, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. They're associated with the orbs. UFOs are associated with orbs. Ghosts, Bigfoot, any kind of anything that's going on is associated with orbs in my experience. And something that I found super fascinating are the Brown Mountain lights. That's something else. I'm pretty sure you've probably done some research on those.
I did, sure, and I actually, in my book that will be coming out, I looked at all these places around the world that have instances of light. So we have the Brown Mountain Lights. We also have the Marfa Lights in Texas as well too. The Bridgewater Triangle has lights. Ever since the time of Washington Irving, who wrote the Legend of Rip Van Winkle and also the Headless Horseman, parts of the Hudson River Valley has always been associated with these mystery lights as well too. But I'm glad that one of your listeners, brought up the word fairy, because that's what I firmly believe. But it's very difficult to talk about fairies now because we have this perception of them as as the little Tinkerbells, right? Which is indeed is not what they are. That's whenever you domesticate and tame the idea. But in its genesis, fairies were very wild creatures, right? They in fact they could not be domesticated, and they would often take on the form of light in order to go from place to place. And in the Middle Ages, if we were out in the woods and we saw these lights, we would immediately recognize them as fairy lights, and we would know not to follow them because they would often lead you into dangers. And as we go up into the Renaissance as well too, one of my favorite writers, of course, is William Shakespeare, and he gives he recalls an event that happened in 1610, which was a ship for the Virginia Company named the Endeavor. Actually wrecks in Bermuda, and in this retelling of the story, there were creatures that seemed to be able to float in the air and take on a form of electricity, and all these kind of fanciful type of woo. That would have been called woo back then. But Shakespeare hears the story in 1611. A year later, he writes it down as his play, The Tempest. And that is where he ends it on. So that was his last play. But in The Tempest, it's first of all, it's Shakespeare's first play ever taking in the New World because it happens in Bermuda. And the second thing is it's full with a cast of characters that include fairies and ogres and all these other great things, because that's what people were seeing, right? That's what people were seeing. But it is really amazing to look at literature and look at the history and see that these things have been reported for forever. One of the first, you could call it abduction stories, was in the late 1500s, and it was by by Reverend Kirk, and he lived in Scotland, and he described he was taking a walk one evening, and on the side of a hill. Again, it takes place in nature. On the side of a hill, a light opens up as if a door opens up, and he musters enough courage and he goes up and he looks inside, and inside the hill he sees these marvelous creatures. Some were very beautiful humanoid looking people, almost like the Nordics, right? But other ones not so much. So is this an account of a fairy visitation, or was he abducted by aliens, right? Again, these gray areas, no pun intended, but it seems that orbs are the ones that kind of link everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I mean, so orbs go way back, just like UFOs go way back. If you look in a lot of art, and I don't know if this has always been an art, I just feel like everything has been covered up, and the truth has been held from us, and things like orbs and fairies and all this stuff has been presented to us in modern day as though it's all mythological and it's not real and it's stuff of fairy tales.
Right.
But it seems like we're getting more and more sightings of cryptids. I mean, I've seen videos of people reportedly having fairies on video. Okay, could it be a moth? Yes, I don't know.
Yeah. Our buddy Dave Scott has a very convincing footage of what he believes to have a fairy visiting his daughter in her bedroom. People are capturing that seem, rather outlandish, but what else are we going to do with it? You look at the evidence and you say, well, it's not a moth, it's not a bird, it's not a bat. What is in her bedroom with her, right? So these are strange times. But I think the reason why, I don't think it takes a cover up in any way. I don't think it's so much a conspiracy. I just think that we were so connected to the land until relatively recently that everything that we consider strange now is something that's natural. And the only way it becomes natural is because we would have more interaction with it, right? So I think whenever we lived in a world that was very tied to the land and was agricultural, that fairies were much more real and immediate. People would talk about, if you didn't treat the fairies properly or pay them the certain type of reverence or respect, they would make the milk go sour, or they would tie knots in horses' manes, and all these great kind of rustic stories, right? But there was a certain type of knowledge there that you had to have respect for nature at large, because there was things within the natural world that were unpredictable, and their intentions were ambiguous at best. And it was just better. I mean, look, we talk about this happening in England, which most of it did, happen there. But whenever the settlers came over to the New World, there's parts in Massachusetts, certain types of the year, they open up their gates to allow the bad energies out and the good energies in, And think about Halloween, too. The reason why we dress up is so the bad fairies do not follow us home and find out where we live. So fairies have always been out there. They've always been part of our idea of how nature works, but we simply forget about them because the more and more modern we become, and the more we evolve into these kind of technological creatures, the things of the past soon kind of fade away into superstition and disbelief. And that's sad. That's sad, because I think that we have forgotten far more than we can ever remember. And that kind of link with our past is essential. It is essential.
Oh my gosh, I just learned something tonight. I always learn stuff when I have you on, and I did not know that that's why we dress up for Halloween, so the fairies don't
Yeah.
get us.
Yeah. So
I
yeah,
didn't
that's
know that.
absolutely. And so fairies also would, as we talked about, appear as light, right? So the will of the wisp, you've heard of that, right? The will of the
Yes.
wisp is fairy light. So people believe that at certain types of the year, fairies would the veil between one world and the next will be at its thinnest, and that particular time, one of these times was during Halloween. That's why we celebrate it whenever we do. So at this time, not only can the dead come across, but so too can the fairies. And as they will o' the wisp their way through villages and everything, um, it came up with an idea. Hey, we could fool these things, and of course, no pumpkins grow in Europe, but turnips do. So people would carve up a turnip and put a little ember in there, and then the fairy in the form of the will o' the wisp would come through the town, and they would see this glowing in at the door of the house, and he would think we already got to them, so they moved on. It was kind of a Passover. So the carving of a pumpkin even alludes to the fact that we were so afraid of fairies that we would put out a sign that they had already visited our house and they would leave us alone for the rest of the night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
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 Listen, you don't want to get messed with the fairies. I actually did a show not too long ago on changelings,
Oh
and
yes.
that's pretty terrifying. Okay, having your child switched for a basically like a grown, it looks like a grown troll, like a grown up, but
That's
kind of
right.
looks like a kid, but it doesn't. It's almost out of spite. They'll come
That's right.
change your kid. Yeah.
Yeah. But we can connect the dots with the modern world too, because people report, these alien hybrids, right? They
Mhm.
show me my offspring, in their ship. But could it be possible that we're not dealing with extraterrestrials, but something that is indeed part of this earth? And even in Shakespeare, now Shakespeare again, A Midsummer Night's Dream, because fairies come out and play on Midsummer as well too. We see that there is indeed a human boy that is abducted and taken to the world of the fairies. So that belief was going well up into the 1600s, and in actuality, this is a very a cool fact. It was up, and I'm not sure exactly the year. I'm thinking it might be like 1835. In Ireland, this man's wife goes out and she disappears for like a week, right? Probably on a bender or something, right? But in this day and age, it was a little bit, harder to say I was at the bar or whatever the case may be. So she comes back home, and she uses as an excuse that, she had lost time, almost like an alien abduction and everything. But the husband said she was not the same before when she came home. She was different before she left. So obviously he was a changeling. So in front of his friends, he beat her to death and set her on fire. Now he was put on trial. He was found guilty, but there was exonerating evidence that maybe possibly he did kill a changeling, and he only served about 3 years, and he was released. And then like all kind of criminals like that, he eventually emigrated to the United States, and here he died.
Okay, that's really sad that happened. But imagine how suspicious people would have been. And here's the thing, like, they may not have had like pictures, and you couldn't just go to your phone and whip out some pictures to look side by side, like, is this my child or not, especially with newborns.
Absolutely.
And it makes me wonder, is that why we take pictures the second they come out? They're like wrapped up and after they take their bath and stuff.
That's right.
So that we know if they're changed, which is, God, that's terrifying. But it's almost like that thing that I hear about a lot called the uncanny valley. It's like, it looks like a human or a person, but there's something that's just quite off, just a little tiny bit off. That makes the question, is that even a human?
Oh, sure. Or like they talk about these deer that change, the near deer or whatever they call it.
No deer.
Yeah, that's right. Something like, or the no deer. It's something along those lines where even animals are a little off, as if there's something to them that doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah. Something, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. That's why I say go with your gut. But back in the days, with that story that you just told about the gentleman that beat his wife to death, that he thought it was a changeling, they would do that too. If a parent thought that their child had been changed into a changeling and it was actually a fairy or a troll, they would put it in the oven and stuff, like do horrible things to it. So it would like torture the changeling, the troll or the fairy, until the parents of that one came back and exchanged their baby. So I mean, it's kind of sick and twisted a little bit.
It is kind of sick and twisted, right?
Yes.
But remember, this wasn't a human, right? You were trying to drive the fairy. You're trying to drive the invading spirit out of your life or your house, right? So in that kind of society, whenever it was based upon superstition and a lot of religious beliefs as well too, because the last time in a Christian society that you would want to do is allow a demonic or another otherworldly entity into your house. So that was kind of like your God-given duty to do as well too. Now there are some parents that did not go completely out on that limb, and there are certain types of the year, the first day of summer being one of these times, whenever you could take a certain type of bush, usually like a rowan bush or something like that, and you would burn it on top of a fairy mound, and that would then impel them to release your children back to you. So there were ways to get around this without being so cruel.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people I know have little fairy houses outside in front of their houses, and like put little fairy. I had a fairy door on a tree in my backyard for a while, and they say that appeases the fairy gods, apparently.
Yeah, you know what? So I do have them as well too, but there's something about them. So we talked about portals at the very beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the fairy doors are designed to do is to allow one world to enter into our world, right? So then there's a portal of intention and what you're putting into your house. Now, what my kind of hesitancy is about this is fairies are really duplicitous. We don't know if they're good or if they're bad, but we know if you do have a fairy, if you piss them off, and it's easy to piss off a fairy. If you upset them in any way, your life is going to be a living hell. So you don't want to have them around for fear that you're going to do something wrong. So people would call them like the little folk or the wee folk because you didn't want to in any way insult them, right? And so it was kind of a very fine line that you had to walk. But I love the aesthetics of a fairy door, but I just want to let you know that that could be a way for these elements to enter into your home, and that might not be something that you not necessarily want.
No, there's just so
No.
many different ways that these little cryptids and critters can get into your home. And I'd had a really, really awesome discussion with my friend Dennis Carroll one day. We talked about magic mirrors and
Oh
mirrors
yes.
and portals, and everybody having mirrors in their homes, and televisions can be portals too. But we were specifically talking about mirrors, and I mean, it even goes back to, I mean, some people even today will cover their mirrors when their loved ones die in
Oh
their
sure.
homes.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you don't want to catch a spirit. But people also go to antique shops and buy 200-year-old mirrors. Like, I don't know who would do that. I have no
I've
idea, you
done it.
know. Oh,
Guilty.
well, there you go. There you go.
I
Okay.
have
Well,
one right over there. Yeah,
yeah,
I should
yeah,
cover it.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It's too late now, so you might as well
Yeah,
just enjoy it.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know. I
yeah.
rebuke
But
you. Whatever's coming in, don't you're not allowed. Yeah.
that's right. The one good thing is if you buy a mirror that's old enough, okay, if you buy a mirror that's old enough, fairies will not be able to come through. Do you know why?
Why?
Because they used silver in the making of mirrors, and fairies and other unnatural creatures cannot be around silver. That's the reason why it will kill a werewolf, and also the reason why a vampire cannot see its reflection is because it contains silver, and silver is a bane against all things supernatural.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
why people put horseshoes over their door
It,
too.
I actually, so
Could
say you
it?
want to get rid of a fairy. Perfect. We could talk about this. A
Okay.
horseshoe, because it's made of iron, right?
Yeah.
Anything silver, a prayer book, a Bible, things, don't bring wild time into your house. So fairies will enter your house almost kind of like a ghost through an attachment. So if you bring things from outside, there could be a power attached to these things, and then they would be coming, unleashed into your house. But you definitely want fairies to be in your garden. That's a must, right? So I would think that if you're going to put up fairy doors and do all this stuff, keep it outside because that's where fairies like to live.
Okay. Yeah, keep it outside. Keep it all outside.
That's
I
right.
was talking with somebody the other day about people putting the welcome mats in front of their doors. I would absolutely. I don't have a welcome mat because black-eyed kids,
Yeah,
vampires,
right.
fairies. You're not welcome in my
That's
house.
right.
No
That's
vampires,
right.
and nobody, soliciting and stuff. You're not allowed either. Okay,
That's right.
so
Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah, no Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff like that, right? I understand because there are different types of creatures out there than just the things that inhabit the darkness, right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot. I mean, I've had a black-eyed man, a black-eyed human show up at my door late one night and ring my doorbell and knock on my door. And I was not about to let that dude in my house at
No,
all. I
no,
didn't know him.
yeah,
Yeah.
that frightens the heck out of me. So yeah, I don't mess with anything that has black eyes, whether they're children or peds. I just don't do it. So it's just one of those things that just make me nervous.
I love black eyed peas. I love black eyed peas. But yeah,
The
I
the
know
band
this is
the band with food.
yeah, with that spoon.
Yeah.
I gotta just put this one little comment in here. I was actually on a show one day and somebody in the chat asked if what I thought of BECs. And I was hungry and I really thought they were talking about bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches.
Oh, right, right, right. So you
Yeah.
said I'm all for it. Yeah,
A
I'm all
BBC?
for it.
Yeah, sure. I'm totally down for those. I'll let those in my house any day.
Oh,
So
wow. Wow.
I,
That
I
does
felt
make me
really
happy.
silly, but it
Yeah,
happens. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. It's all good. It's all good. Because I would definitely let a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich into my house as well. So, would you put that? Now, let me ask you a question. This is an important question as we wrap things up. What kind of bread would you serve that on?
What kind of bread? A
Yeah,
BEC, a black-eyed kid, or a bacon, egg, and cheese?
a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich.
I usually just do regular white bread.
Okay,
White bread. It's how we say
you're
down
you're,
here in the South. Yeah,
you're
white
missing
bread.
out. You're missing out. If we ever go
Yeah.
on an expedition,
Ciabatta.
I will make you one. And the key is to put it on. I hope your guests or I hope your listeners are writing this down. Put it on an onion bagel. It will change your world.
An onion bagel. That sounds so good. I love bagels.
I do
Absolutely.
too. It
I'll
will
totally
change.
do that.
Yep.
It'll change your world. Just don't eat
Well,
a black-eyed kid. Okay, everybody, don't do it.
yeah.
I
Don't
felt
eat a
I
black
felt really silly live on air that day. I was like, oh, what is a BEC? A bacon, egg, and cheese?
Yes, that's
So
right. That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
I don't know.
If
We I love to have fun here, man. These are really fun topics and can be terrifying. But we like to stay light over here
we
and uh,
do, we do.
and have a good
And
time, Ron. This is so fun. Can you? I can't believe we come to the end of the hour. This is
it,
wild. This flew by.
fairies, dogman, Bigfoot, sandwiches. It covered the whole entire gamut.
We did. We
Yeah.
did 100%. Well, okay, Ron, can you tell the audience where they can find your books and any final thoughts on anything, orbs or whatever? Any final
Yeah.
thoughts tonight?
Let me see. Well, you can find me on the Facebook because all the kids use the Facebook, right? So you
Yeah.
can find me on there, Ronald L. Murphy Jr., and go ahead and like my author page, and then you can find out where some of the places that I'll be talking and everything. Because every now and then I will talk on fairies. It's one of my favorite subjects. You can also find me. You can email me, Ronald L. Murphy jr@yahoo.com. So I'd be looking forward to somebody that wants to talk sometime. Give me an email. You can also find my books on Amazon. That's where everybody buys books from. And I do have a book out on fairies, which is an exhaustive historical study of fairies throughout various cultures around the world. And the other question, part 2 of your question was.
Final thoughts.
Oh, final thought.
Final thought.
If you are inclined to investigate or research the world of the paranormal, I think it is my advice to keep an open mind. And even if something doesn't make sense, like strange little lights floating around in the woods, there is a reason why you are witnessing these things. And keep that in the back of your head because there are more things to these kind of legends and these kind of experiences than meets the eye.
Oh, I love that. 100% agree with you. I
Yes,
agree with
yes.
that statement. Yes. Ron, thank you so much for being here. Will you please come back and hang out with me again?
I will come back. I will be on every single show. So you think that my knowledge is just about the bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, but I have other recipes for other sandwiches as well too. We can get into Reuben sandwiches, which I love to make Reuben sandwiches, and maybe one of these days we'll have just a cooking discussion, and we will name sandwiches after various cryptids.
It's a date, man. Let's do it. Okay, sounds good, Ron. Okay.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right,
Yeah,
we'll see you next time. See ya. Oh my gosh, y'all. That was so fun. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did and learned just as much as I did tonight. Please go over to After Hours now. Rob G has a great show, really good program tonight. They're going to be talking about some remote viewing, I think. That's my forte, and that's what I love. So I'll try to hop in that chat after I get my kid to bed tonight. I hope you guys will come see me on the Cryptid Huntress channel on YouTube this week. I'm going to have a couple of great shows Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you guys so much for being here. I want to thank all of my moderators, everybody that showed up in the live chat, everybody that's watching in the future, in the past. I love you guys. You guys have a wonderful week. And keep your head on a swivel. Lock your doors. And I will see y'all later this week. Bye, y'all.